Faced with the threat of the death penalty, Foolio's killers confessed. Reports indicate they even offered apologies.
We shouldn't have did that. We shouldn't have traveled all the way to Jacksonville to Tampa to go kill Foolio.
But that was only the beginning. They revealed everything to investigators, including the details of how the shooting was carried out.
He puts out his arms, I guess, and it appears that he's brandishing a rifle.
And that's when things really took a wild turn. They name-dropped a famous rapper right in the middle of it all. Yeah, it got explosive fast. Let me break it down. When the streets collided with the courtroom, the manhunt following Foolio's murder became one of Florida's most intense investigations. Law enforcement agencies across the state worked tirelessly to track down the suspects. And once the arrests began, it was like watching dominoes topple. On July 27, 2024, 3 suspects, Isaiah Chance 21, Alicia Andrews 21, and Sean Gathite 18, were arrested in Jacksonville. But the case didn't stop there. Just 2 days later, on July 29, Rashad Murphy 30 was taken into custody after a tense standoff. The final piece of the puzzle, Dave Murphy 27, wasn't caught until January 6, 2025, after spending months on the run. But here's where things got truly unbelievable. Once in custody, the suspects started talking, saying things that even veteran detectives struggled to process. Now picture this: Devon Murphy in the interrogation room, and what happened next was straight out of a crime thriller.
He puts out his arms, like this, and it appears that he's brandishing a rifle with one hand extended, and one that I would consider the trigger finger. He starts walking around the interview room after he gets out of his seat, and this is after Detective Meter and I left. And he's holding it like this in front of him, and then he starts going, and then he walks around, and then he does it again. And he does it multiple times.
Y'all, you won't believe this dude literally stood up in the interrogation room and started acting out how he shot Foolio, sound effects and all. The detectives had stepped out, but the cameras were still rolling, and this guy thought it was smart to reenact a murder on tape. The streets started calling it the most self-incriminating move they'd ever seen, but it gets even worse for the suspects. During Isaiah Chance's interrogation, police didn't hold back. They made their feelings about Foolio crystal clear.
What do you know about Foolio? Let's start from there. I think he's a piece of I watched all those videos. I went down that rabbit hole.
Yeah, we all did.
I mean, that Joker's desecrating graves. He is asking to be killed. There is no doubt about it. I can't even took this many years for somebody to kill him. Honest to God.
Now, while that might shock some people, it really just shows how deep this gang beef ran and how even law enforcement recognized the dangerous game Foolio was playing. The detectives weren't justifying his murder, but they were acknowledging the harsh reality of the street life he had embraced. The evidence against the suspects was overwhelming. Investigators pieced it all together using surveillance footage, license plate readers, and phone records to track down 2 vehicles and tie them directly to the suspects. But here's the real jaw-dropper. When police searched Sean Gathite's car, they found ammunition that matched shell casings from a shooting involving Foolio 2 years earlier. Let that sink in. This guy had been riding around with physical evidence from a previous attempt on Foolio's life for 2 whole years. As one commentator put it was like he had been carrying a smoking gun with the safety off the whole time.
You mean to tell me that he couldn't even go clean his car? So the rounds that he allegedly used to shoot Foolio 2 years before was still in his car.
Man,
so in 2 years, I guess he's never cleaned out the car because the rounds were still in the car.
The sheer recklessness of these suspects was astounding. Believing themselves untouchable, they left a trail of evidence at every turn. When the arrests were finally made, it marked a significant victory for law enforcement in both Tampa and Jacksonville.
For all the victims, including the mother, Charles Jones, who traveled from Jacksonville this morning to be present for this announcement. Today I stand before Tampa Police Major Pat Messmer, Jacksonville Sheriff T.K. Waters, and Hillsborough State Attorney Susie Lopez to announce the arrest of 3 people in the deadly shooting of Charles Jones, also known by his stage name of Foolio. In addition, we have warrants and are actively searching for 2 other individuals in this case.
All 5 suspects were charged with first-degree murder and conspiracy to commit murder, facing the possibility of life in prison or even the death penalty. The depth of coordination among them made it clear this wasn't a random act of violence. It was a calculated and deliberate execution. As the investigation unfolded, each suspect's role came into focus. Isaiah Chance and Alicia Andrews were identified as lookouts who tracked Foolio's movements throughout Tampa, including stops at Teaser's Gentleman's Club and the Truth 18 nightclub. Meanwhile, Sean Gathite, Rashad Murphy, and Devon Murphy were believed to be the gunman. Then came a shocking revelation. Investigators uncovered connections that ran deeper than expected. According to court documents, a rapper known as Jay Breezy, reportedly affiliated with the 1200 gang, allegedly sent a $390 Cash App payment to Isaiah Chance on June 22, 2024. That money was used to book an Airbnb, potentially aiding in the execution of the murder plot. While Jay Breezy has not been charged, the transaction raised serious questions. The suspect's gang ties painted a grim picture of the street politics driving the violence. Rashad Murphy was linked to the ATK gang, while Isaiah Chance was connected to 1,200. These weren't just individuals committing crimes, they were foot soldiers in a long-running gang war. Although prosecutors obtained surveillance footage, parts of it were reportedly damaged, further complicating the case.
Surveillance video was critical in this investigation, as suspects were seen on video following Jones from location to location. This shows the lengths that these individuals were willing to go through and achieve that this murder would occur. At 4:15 in the morning, Jones began to head to a hotel on McKinley. One of the suspect vehicles is seen following the victim. However, instead of following them into a parking lot, they stage across the street.
The murder itself was caught on camera, and when prosecutors played the footage in court, it had a powerful, gut-wrenching impact.
This is at the hotel, and you can see the shooters are getting in position for their planned out murder. And they are shooting at Charles now, and you can see that he's the passenger in that car that's moving and trying to flee. And again, they're still shooting at him. He's the right front passenger in that vehicle.
The bond hearings for the suspects were tense and emotional, reflecting the gravity of the charges. Judges denied bond across the board, citing both the seriousness of the alleged crimes and the ongoing threat these individuals pose to the community. When Devon Murphy appeared for his bond hearing in January 2025, the judge's decision was swift: bond denied, but the courtroom dynamics shifted when personal details about the suspects began to surface. Alicia Andrews revealed she was pregnant, a development that introduced a new layer of complexity to her case. Pregnancy behind bars while facing a murder charge creates unique pressures and potential leverage both for the prosecution and the defense. As the investigation deepened, the extent of the planning behind the murder became even clearer. The conspiracy to kill Jones stretched from June 21 to June 23, 2024. The suspects traveled from Jacksonville to Tampa on June 22 in two separate vehicles, underscoring that this was no spontaneous act, it was a coordinated military-style operation. Social media also played a critical role. Foolio had posted his location multiple times throughout the night, effectively providing a digital roadmap for his killers to follow. In today's digital age, technology can turn deadly in the wrong hands. The impact on the community was profound. Sheriff T.K. Waters made it clear, this level of violence would not be tolerated in Florida.
In closing, I want to directly speak to those who choose violence and those who embrace a culture that glorifies violence. Florida, Tampa, JSO, Jacksonville, Miami, wherever you are, will not tolerate foolishness, will not tolerate shootings and needless violence.
The prosecution was just as resolute in making a statement. State Attorney Susie Lopez emphasized that all those involved would be accountable and face the appropriate consequences.
The feud stops here. All 5 of these defendants are facing life in the Florida State Prison, even the ones who didn't pull the trigger. In Florida, if you participate in the planning of a murder, you can be held accountable for the person's death. And that is what we intend to do here.
As legal proceedings unfolded, it became undeniable that the prosecution had assembled a powerful case against all 5 suspects. The evidence was damn meticulously detailed and impossible to refute, supported by multiple surveillance videos capturing every step of the crime. The planning had been methodical, the execution chillingly precise. These young individuals had made choices that would haunt them for the rest of their lives. Now let's rewind to the night that set everything in motion. A night marked by violence and irreversible decisions. Jacksonville had long been engulfed in a brutal gang war, one that had claimed countless lives over the past decade. At the heart of this ongoing conflict, Charles Andrew Jones, better known to the world as Foolio. He wasn't a rising rapper. He was a central figure in the streets, repping 6 Block Gang, a part of the KTA network, short for Kill Them All. And that name wasn't just a slogan. Foolio's life was steeped in violence from the very beginning. His father Charles Andrew Jones Sr. was gunned down in a 2011 shooting, a murder that set off a tragic cycle of vengeance. Raised in Jacksonville's Moncrief neighborhood, Foolio didn't just rap about street life, he lived it. His projects like Life of Me, Final Destination and Resurrection weren't just music, they were gritty autobiographies of a young man entrenched in real-life turf wars. The feud that eventually led to his death escalated in 2017 with the murder of his 18-year-old cousin Zion Malik Brown. That killing intensified the already dangerous war between 6 Block and their rivals ATK, AC's top killers, and 1200 based out of East Jacksonville. This wasn't performative social media drama. It was a real deadly conflict with a rising body count, despite surviving several assassination attempts, including a shooting in Houston in July 2020 and another in Jacksonville in October 2023. Foolio remained defiant. He even claimed he returned fire in the Houston incident, staying loyal to the street code that had defined his life. June 23, 2024 was meant to be different. Foolio had traveled to Tampa to celebrate his 26th birthday. But celebration turned into tragedy. Around 4:40 a.m., after being asked to vacate an Airbnb due to overcrowding, he and his crew were ambushed. What followed was something out of a war zone. 3 assailants opened fire using a pistol with a high-capacity magazine, firing more than 30 rounds alongside 2 rifles equipped with brass catchers. The assault left 3 others wounded but alive. Foolio wasn't as fortunate. This wasn't random. It was a targeted, premeditated hit. Tampa police later released surveillance footage that devastating. This was real life, not a movie, not a track. And the consequences were deadly.
I heard him take his last, bro. We got to the hotel, he went in, checked in, and they told him that the room had already been taken. He came back to the car. On his phone, trying to find a hotel. I'm just on point watching everything. Looked down at my phone for like a split second. And something just ain't feel right. As soon as I look up, I just shoot it. I just kept telling him, dog, I ain't really hear him say shit, really. Cause the gunfire was so loud. So it was just like, I ain't really hear him say nothing. I already knew. I stopped the car, because he wasn't responding. I heard him take his last, bro.